Alright, welcome back. I like my wine as much as the next person. Portugal has one of the biggest wine industries in the world. I think it's around the top 10. I found a good video for the wine lovers out there. 12 Portuguese wines from Douro you should try. So let's get into it.
It was one of my highest scored wines during this last trip. Great wine. My name's Matthew Horkey. For the last 6 years, I've been traveling around the world, tasting thousands of wines per year, in search of the most unique, exciting, and expensive bottles on the planet. And today, I'm going to talk about 12 dry wines from the Douro in Portugal that you need to check out this year. The Douro is named after the Douro River in Portugal. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's a beautiful, unforgiving landscape. It's got steep, dramatic hills with terraces carved into them, tons of vines. It's just absolutely...
Could you imagine having to great pick those those vines? It'd be very interesting, that's for sure.
Humongous. I've been there in the summer before where it is extremely hot. Grapevines in the Douro are some of the lowest yielding vines in the world, which means they don't produce a lot of fruit per vine. It's broken into three parts: the Baixa Corgo, which is a little bit cooler, a little bit closer to the Atlantic Ocean, the Cima Corgo, which is the heart, and the Douro Superior, which goes into the border of Spain. It's the hottest part of the Douro.
So if you've been to the Barossa or McLaren Vale, you're surrounded by some mountains, mountain ranges. It looks very similar to that, obviously without the Great River in the middle.
Dry wines in the Douro, both red and white, are going to be blends of all these varieties. Sometimes you'll see single varietal wines, but most of the time they just say tinto, they just say red. And producers sometimes say, I don't even know what grapes are in the blend because it's a field blend. There are 64 red varieties and 48 white varieties there. A lot of old vines, a lot of vines.
Yeah, so that's the one thing you will find, because obviously the low yield in production, it kind of means that obviously they're blended varieties. So what you will see is when you go to the supermarket, you will often get, you don't get a specific type. Now, I'm a Cab Sav man, but you won't find that pretty much in most places, or not easily. I'm pretty sure you'd be able to find it, but in your local bottle-o, you're going to just find these wines that are pretty much just give you the brand and the region, so, but they're very good. Like, don't get me wrong, they're good wines.
Wines are native to that region. And some real unique ones. When you're talking about reds, you're talking about grapes like Touriga Nacional, Touriga Franca. Whites, you're talking about Areto, Viacinho, Rabigato. Historically, this was a region that created the great wines that became port. Port wines are fortified wines. They're sweet wines. Historically, the wines were fortified so they could survive the journey from Portugal all the way back to England. But in the last few decades, it's a region where a lot of stellar white and red dry wines are being made that are on par with some of the greatest wines in the world. I've been to the Douro 4 times in the last 7 years, and I have to say, it takes my breath away every single time. I've been fortunate enough to visit almost all of Europe's greatest wine regions.
Spectacular landscapes. If you can make your way to Portugal, definitely do a Douro tour. Spectacular.
And I think the Douro might be the most visually spectacular. On this last visit, I was at a tasting called the Douro Primeira Provo, which is...
It's unlike where McLaren Vale and Barossa, they're probably a little bit unscenic. You just got rows of vines and mountains and stuff, hills, and they're probably not the most scenic of countrysides, whereas you can see, obviously, combined with the river, with the Douro, I think as a general tourist just looking to explore what Portugal has to offer, you're really going to love it.
It's a tasting of the newest vintages and some old stuff as well from some of the top producers in the region. In this list, I have some of the greatest Douro dry wines, but stick around to the end because I'm going to share 3 options that are affordable and worth checking out.
Voos para o Brasil? Reserve já em flytap.com.
Wine number one, we're going to start off with whites, the wine and soul guru. I think that this might be the greatest white wine in the Douro. It's a blend of a lot of grapes like Viocino, Rabigato, Codega, Gouveio. It's barrel fermented, it's not a cheap one.
Because of the huge variety of wines in Portugal, I'm probably to have unlikely even tried half of these or even seen them. So I'm probably just going to put them all down on my bucket list. And next time I go to the supermarket or a wine specialist shop, I'm going to search these out and give them a go.
Wine, on average, we're talking about the low $40 range. It is so rich, so full-bodied, but don't think of it like a Chardonnay. It's got these beautiful mineral and
It says $40, so I don't know if he's talking as in 40 euros or as in 40 US dollars. I don't know. So, but if he's talking 40 US dollars, that's still going to be over 30 euros. Now, for a bottle, $30 euro bottle of wine, that's expensive as far as wine goes. And as far as quality in comparison, sure, I'm sure it is a reasonably quality wine. But I've tried some good wines that are around the $5-10 euro mark and less. That, it's for the Portuguese culture, their wines are quality in general. So while he's talking a $40 bottle of wine, I don't know whether that's like restaurant rates or what you'd buy at a bar or at a bottle. So there's a bit of a context to it that I don't know.
And lemony notes. It's also one of the wineries I first discovered when I first started going to Portugal. I remember going to a wine bar in Porto called Wine Key Bar. The owner saw that I really liked wine. They said, hold on a second, we got something good for you. They pulled out some wines from this winery under the table, and from then I've been hooked.
They do that in Portuguese culture. If they know that you like a wine, like a wine bar, like you're into it, they will solidly recommend something and they will almost give you a bottle. I've been given free bottles before, multiple restaurants. So yeah, don't be afraid to let them know if you're into wine that you're keen to try new things. See what they recommend. It's a good experience.
Number 2, we have the Van Zeller & Co. CV Curriculum Vitae. It's a blend of grapes like Rabigato, Viocino, Gouveio, Codega, and there's some other stuff in there as well. Not a cheap wine, $60. It's a big barrel fermented, serious Douro white that ages beautifully, owned by Cristiano Van Zeller. He used to own the winery Quinta do Vale Dona Maria, which I've been there before. I've had lunch there. I've met with him a couple of times. Real charismatic guy. Beautiful wine. Number 3, this is a brand new wine that's just about to be released this year. That's the Quinta do Novo Branco Reserva. The first vintage will be 2021. Quinta do Novo is famous for vintage ports, but they make some nice dry wines too. This white wine was really stellar, showed really well at the show. It's a blend of Viocino and Gouveio, barrel fermented. It's a little pricier. It's going to be around $60. But it's a white wine that you can throw down in the cellar. It shows wood, but the wood's integrated super well.
Okay, so obviously this is really marketed towards the wine aficionados. If you're like myself, who doesn't have a wine cellar, just purely looks to purchase wine and drink it. You got to ask yourself whether those prices are worth it. And he looks like he's got some allegiances to some particular wineries as well. So,
Fans of white Burgundy, big Chardonnays are really going to like it. Let's move on to reds. Number 4, we have the Nipor Batuta. Newport is a famous shipper, makes port wines, a lot of dry wines. He's also one of the most innovative names in the Douro, in all of Portugal. Makes wines all over Portugal. Some of the top wines are a little bit lighter in style because he's a fan of Burgundy. Sometimes when I look at the alcohols, like Batuta, I think sometimes can be under 12%. I have no idea how he's making that in the Douro. Fans of Pinot Noir are really going to like this style. More medium-bodied, more light red fruit flavors, but it still tastes a little bit like the Douro, which I like. This wine's also not cheap, but it's coming in at $64, but it's a wine that I absolutely love. Next up is a wine.
Alright, well, I do like my reds, so Burgundy's not bad. Yeah, you know, sometimes you do have to splash out for some nice wine, so we'll see.
I always screw up the name. Casa Fajarinha. The Quinta da Leda 2018 is the current release. Casa Fajarinha is behind one of Portugal's greatest wines, the Barca Velha. And I've tasted almost all of Portugal's cult or iconic wines. I still haven't tasted Barca Velha. The Quinta da Leda is actually the same grapes, just kind of declassified wines. You know, Barca Velha is only made in special years. It's a beautiful wine, comes in around $50. It's just a balanced, full-bodied red wine that has those flavors that I really crave from the Douro. The Douro reds are so unique because they're big, but they're still red fruit in flavor. You think strawberry, more sour cherry.
Okay, so in Australia, I know that we kind of pay those prices for wine. So a 60 euro bottle or 60 US dollar bottle is going to be about, you're looking about 80, 90 Australian dollars, maybe a little bit less depending on exchange rate equivalent. And I know that a lot of people, when you go to a bottle-o, won't buy anything under, under $20 unless it's on special from something that's over 30. Like one of my favorites to go to was Pepperjack. I miss Pepperjack actually. Yeah. So it's something worth taking note of too, that while it's good to try, just go to the supermarket and experiment with the cheaper wines in there, I mean, I did criticize the whites. I admit the hypocrisy. Try the more expensive bottles of white. He's talking about obviously being a wine aficionado. You can buy it, you can store it for a long period of time, and it's going to age really well. That's probably, it is worth going to experiment. If you're really into your wine, definitely chase this up.
Cherry, a little bit of black cherry, Kirsch cherry. But since the Douro is made up of granite and schist soils, it's got like this nice little mineral hit that I love. And Quinta da Leda ages super well. Next up is a value play. The Ramos Pinto Duas Quintas Reserva. The 2019 is super impressive. Ramos Pinto is a estate that I actually stayed the night at back at the Port Wine Declaration in 2019. The Duas Quintas Reserva is a great red wine.
I think I've tried this one. Yeah, I've yet to find a wine I'm disappointed in.
That really outperforms its price point. Comes in at around $33. You can find it all around the world, and it ages super well. I've tasted it next to a lot of more expensive wines, and it always shows excellent. Next up is a winery that's also close to my heart. We have the Poira Vinha do Torre 2017 is the current release. Poira, along with Wine and Soul, were some of the first Portuguese wines I really fell in love with. I told you that story earlier when I visited Wine Key Bar for the first time in Porto. They knew I was a wine lover. They said, hey, I got something to check out. They pulled out some of these wines. I was blown away from the first sniff. Plus, I love George, the winemaker. He's a super charismatic guy. It's really cool because you...
I'm not a wine sniffer. I prefer to drink it. Just me. But as I said, I'm not a wine aficionado. I don't really get into all the tasting style of drinking a wine. But,
You have the Pão de Poira, which is a little bit more value for money. You have their standard one, the Poira, and then the Vinha do Torre. This is their reserve wine, and it's just outstanding. It's not cheap as well, $72, but it was one of my highest scored wines during this last trip. Next up is the Pratts and Symington Crisia, especially the 2019 vintage. Pratts and Symington is a partnership between the Symington family, which seems to own almost most of the Douro, and Bruno Pratts, who used to own Costa Estornel in Bordeaux. A few years ago, the 2011 was actually Wine Spectator's #3 wine of the year. It's made with Portuguese varieties. It's a real polished wine, super full-bodied. It tastes like the Douro, but it has the tannins and the mouthfeel of a great Bordeaux. You can find this wine around $70 worldwide. Again, not a cheap wine, but it's a wine that's a serious wine. You can lay it down in the cellar and it's going to keep getting better with.
I have to finish writing this paper. I'm swamped.
Just get Grammarly. It's free.
Can it help with what I wrote last night?
With time. Next is the Quinta Valle Donna Maria, the Vineyard da Francesca 2019. I had lunch at the estate back in 2019. It's a beautiful estate. They work traditionally. All their reds, they actually still foot trod in the stone lagers, so it's really made traditionally. I tend to find a lot of their wines to be a little bit too big, but the Vineyard da Francesca is made from a plot of young vines. It's a little bit more elegant. The tannins are a little bit softer, and it always shows well to me. This wine comes in at $69, also considered one
Okay,
of...
so I think you also, what you need to take note in as well, some of these obviously are being made with world's best practice. So yeah, with limited yields, that's going to push the price up, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. And obviously this guy knows what he's talking about, so follow his advice more than mine, definitely.
One of the best wines coming out of the Douro. Next up is maybe my favorite dry wine in the Douro, the Quinta do Valle Miau. I tasted the latest two vintages, 2018, 2019. It's not a huge estate. The grandfather of the current owners actually invented the iconic Portuguese wine, Barca Verde. This wine is also not cheap, and the prices have been rising throughout the years because the reputation keeps going up and up. We're talking about $115. I know that's not cheap, but this wine retains all the red fruit flavors of the Douro, but it's more medium bodied, it's silky, the tannins are really round, and it ages really, really beautifully. I had lunch at the estate back in 2019 with a group of writers, and I remember one of my friends who likes more natural type wines. I said, "You're going to like this." We had a...
Okay, so one interesting thing, I guess, is price point in the industry. Now, if you're looking to sell internationally, you want a recognized price point that gives you a quality image. And if you've got wineries in the Barossa regularly selling classic wines and series of wines for over $100, you're going to get that around the world as well, especially those that are trying to sell to similar markets, because they want the similar mindset around the price point, marketing. And does that mean it's going to be any better quality? Well, in theory, it's supposed to be, yes, but as I've said, like, cheaper wines do often win the world's best wine contests. So as I said, like, don't be afraid to experiment with the cheaper wines in Portugal. He's come up with some really excellent recommendations. I mean, the prices aren't obscene, obviously. I've lost count the amount of times I used to work in the Barossa, and the amount of times I would see people buy cartons of $80 to $100 wine. I don't know if, as I said, I don't know if he's talking US dollars or not. So yeah, I just think it's there's plenty to experiment as far as wine goes in Portugal.
Bottle of the Quinta do Valle Miau with a little bit of age, and I remember him sipping on it. He looked at me and he's like, "Yeah, this is more my style." Next up are two wines that represent kind of the new style of Douro. First, we have the Quinta do Cristo Altitude 2019. Quinta do Crasto is one of the estates I fell in love with. It's one of the first Portuguese wines I ever had before ever visiting the country. Visited the estate, had lunch there back in 2019. Beautiful, has an infinity pool sitting on top of the Douro. Really a...
The views are amazing from some of these estates. You can do river cruises on here as well that do full wine tasting tours. So, bit of a plug on something to do while you're in Porto, I guess.
Spectacular place. Some of their wines are a little bit bigger, a little bit richer, but the altitude is made from Tita Francesca and Touriga Nacional. It's just a young, fun, bright, medium-bodied red wine, and the reason I like it is I like more and more when estates take medium-bodied red wines a little bit more seriously. I like it when they actually put some thought into them. Don't think of them as just a second wine. This wine, medium-bodied, but has texture and length. It has an extra something on the palate. You know when you see someone special and they have that little twinkle, that little sparkle in their eye? The good thing also is I think this wine's going to come in around $25, so it's worth checking out. Next up.
See, good cheaper option. Yeah, I guess like anything, you just got to work out what wine means to you and how much you're willing to pay for it. I've never been someone who looks to pay over $20-30 for wine. Does that mean I'm missing out? Probably, but I've had $80 to $100 bottles of wine given to me at times, and I've honestly thought they haven't been spectacular enough to go out and purchase some for myself. So,
Posas, Lagar das Cortas 2020. Posas, I used to think of the wines as being a little bit bigger, a little bit richer, maybe not to my liking, make excellent port wines. But the Lagar das Cortas is more of a medium-bodied wine, more stripped down. It's a wine that I just want to sip on. It's called, a gluck-gluck wine. Again, it's a field blend, like most Portuguese red wines are. But at $35, it's kind of got like that minimal intervention flair, a little bit more natural without being too wild, too crazy. I really like it. Worth checking out. Okay, those are all some big baller wines. I have a handful of wines here that are come in under $25, really show the character of the Douro, something I think you should be
good. This is my part of the video.
checking out. First up is the Quinta do Marças Minas. This comes in at under $20. It's owned by the big company Expat, which is in the Alentejo in Portugal. This is a Douro project. It ranges in the full to medium body scale. It offers tremendous value for money under $20. I actually scored it really high during the tastings, and it's pretty readily available. Another big name, the Quinta da Grisha, the Graffiti. This is owned by the famous port house Churchill's. This wine's going to come in under $20, around $18. It's a full-bodied Douro red. Real rich, but you're getting a lot of wine for the money at that price point. Next up is the second wine of Prats and Symington called Postscriptum. This is a wine that I buy often and drink. And sometimes it's more enjoyable to drink younger than if you drink the Crisia, the higher end wine, younger too. You can find it around the world, about $22. It's a beautiful wine, a little bit darker, a little bit richer in terms of Douro wine, but quite polished. And my favorite wines, this winery I didn't know about, the Douro Tinto 2019. This wine comes in under $20. This is a red fruit driven wine, more medium bodied, still get lots of flavor, but it's not going to break your bank. And the tannins are really soft. I was extremely impressed with this wine, and I never had tasted the wines from the state before. I really think this is something you should check out.
Okay, so he's put in a lot of, so if you're a wine aficionado, come to Portugal, do your Douro wine tour, go out, experience, taste as much as you like. Obviously there are ways to organise shipping back to Australia, and yeah, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I will catch you next time.